So we were talking about earlier, Will, about the critics of reason, and I give a kind of a broad summary of both where they come from historically and where they are today. But you, I think you were asking me about it a little more detail. I really think relativism is the predominant one, the one that we see most often culturally, where people think, yeah, it's true for you, but it's not true for me, or every culture has its own set of beliefs, and we don't want to privilege Western science over, other traditions or whatever. I mean, there are all these different kinds. Um, there are also, a lot of the theorizing in cognitive psychology now. There's a lot of literature coming out based on studies, the fact that, well, humans are very liable to certain kinds of fallacious reasoning, um, judgments about probability or likelihood of certain events or something. They overestimate some risks and underestimate other risks. And people have used this sometimes to say, well, we're not really rational, or that rationality is really not possible fully. And I don't argue with the science or the psychological studies, but the inference that no one can be fully rational, or I think is a fallacy. It's itself a fallacy. Because how did they find out about these things? The experimenters were exercising reason and claiming that this would be the rational thing to do, and our subjects are not doing it. So they at least know what the rational thing is. But also, yeah, we're liable to all kinds of cognitive bear traps and biases and so forth, just the way our eyes are subject to nearsightedness and farsightedness. But we can be aware of that and monitor it and correct for it. So um, I, I think there's a kind of movement in psychology, often associated with evolutionary theories of how our mind works, that say we're just programmed to think a certain way. And again, I always say, yeah, evolution. We came out of evolution, so no surprise if we have um, um, mental habits or traits that were selected for by evolution. But at the same time, our very awareness of that fact gives us control over them, potentially. So, but I think the broader problem is the really um, the broad brush hostility to reason and skepticism about reason. The postmodern things, claims that uh,
There's different logic.
there's different,
Or
yeah, right, different logics.
I once saw the arch postmodernist Jacques Derrida give a university talk, and at the
Uh-huh.
end of the talk, in which he had spoken in metaphor and um, puns, he made puns into major puns in French, actually. Uh, Globe and globalisation, the globalization and world, which doesn't even work in English, but
Yeah.
there's an etymological connection in French. He made those into pillars of his argument. And he got to the end of his argument and he said, well, have I made a sterling logical argument, or have I given you a good performance? It doesn't matter. Take it whichever way you want. Which was a perfect example, actually, of this postmodern
Right.
rejection, really fundamental rejection of reason.
Yes,
And
exactly.
he was essentially saying, don't oblige me to have had made sense,
Hmm.
as long as I was entertaining.
Right. When I was teaching philosophy, uh, I would sometimes run into students who wrote papers that weren't very logically organized, and when I pointed this out, they would come back at me with that kind of idea. Well, logic. Why do I have to organize it logically? So yeah. Um, but the thing is, and I will be talking about this more in later lectures, but those those attacks always refute themselves. I mean, Derrida may have gone as far as it's possible to go in saying, I'm not even making an assertion here. I'm not claiming anything. So you can't say I'm refuting myself by undermining all claims. But still, what is he doing? He's using language. He's using words. Do the words mean something? They're not noise. At some point, every every use of language presupposes that there's a world and we have a capacity for grasping it and doing so in the form of concepts.